What's going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company with another little winter jig today. So my brother asked me the other day if I had any little leech patterns for winter walleyes, and I really have never used especially live leeches in the winter. There's probably people out there that swear by it even more than minnows, but I really didn't have anything, and I wanted to, so he asked me to tie him up a couple, and I wanted to tie something that's a little bit smaller profile than what I would typically throw in, let's say, October. So what I ended up doing is I'm going to do a pretty traditional leech tie. I'm not going to be using like a rabbit strip, which is what I would use if I was tying on, say, a 3/16 or even a 1/4 ounce lead or tungsten head for summer fishing. I've got these little pine squirrel, just zonker strips. It says micro black, but I think all squirrel strips are pretty much really small. And I'm using this because I wanted it to be just a little bit of a thinner bait, whether you're bouncing it off the bottom or whether you're letting it swim up in the water column. And a lot of people will do like a balanced leech. They'll put like a little needle or something like that and stick the bead out a little bit farther to help it swim really horizontally. But I'm really not worried about that. I think with this is a Umpqua XC400 BL size 8. This is a 60-degree bend, and I'm really not worried about this bait, even if it's kind of sitting in the water, even a little slanted. I mean, leeches are like tiny little snakes in the water. They're just flopping all over the place anyway. I really just want this bait to be a little bit longer than 2 shank lengths. So I'm just going to tie it in. This is going to be between 2 1/4 and 2 3/4. I might tie a couple that are about 3 or so. I'm going to go right behind these little lead wraps, and that's where I'm going to put this down. I'm going to tie this in, and this stuff can kind of be a little bit tricky to just get around all this hair, because you can see I'm going to have my little tail, but I've got quite a bit that I'm going to leave up there. And what I'm going to end up doing, I'm going to have this be on the bottom, mainly so I don't have to worry about my hook, the point of my hook. I don't have to drill anything into there or worry about that. I'm going to put this really on the bottom, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fold this back, and I'm going to put down some dubbing and stuff like that, and then I'm going to wrap this right by my bead, and I'm going to give it a couple twists at the end. And so because the first that I tied, it was just a little bit thin by the head, and I wanted it to be a little bit thicker. So to add some color to this leech, I just wanted to add a little bit of color, preferably red, to this bait. So I've got this STS trilobal dub bloody black leech. This is a synthetic dubbing. It's pretty long, but it's super wispy and thin. And so what I'm going to end up doing, I don't know if I've ever done this in a video either, I'm just going to split my thread. I really don't feel like doing a dubbing loop, especially when it's kind of going to take longer to get that dubbing loop ready than it is just to get it on there. I'm just going to split my thread. This is 140 UTC black. I'm just going to split that, and I've just got little chunks of this dubbing that I'm going to just kind of pack into here. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's going to kind of look a little ugly, but what I want 2 things out of this dubbing. I want it to add a little bit of body, but this longer fiber, when I comb it out, I want some of that fiber in this tail. I want a little bit of that red in the tail. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of take a second here and spin up my thread. Just going to try and get it. I mean, it's basically a dubbing loop that you would do without having to use a dubbing spinner, or, I mean, you can use a dubbing spinner here still, even though you're just doing this. So I'm going to spin this up, and then I've got just a little kind of bodkin I'm going to kind of use just to pick this stuff out. I'm not going to pick it out a ton. I just need a few of these hairs to get onto this squirrel tail. I just want this, and this isn't a super flashy dubbing. There's not much, like, holographic or tinsel or anything like that in there. It's just a little hint of red. And so I just want some of this to make its way back into that tail. I'm not going to even fold this back really. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my thread up and I'm going to do a couple wraps right where I came here, right where I tied down my first part of my leech, and then I'm going to get a little material clip. I'm just going to hold that back, and I'm going to come up here and I'll just fold this back as I wrap it, and I'm going to come all the way up, maybe even wrap over itself a little bit. That should be plenty, and then I can kind of just get this tied off here. My thread is really corded up, so I want to be a little careful. And then I can start to kind of comb this out a little bit, but I'm just going to kind of wait until the end to do that. You can even see a little bit before you even comb it. You can see some of that red. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of tighten this up a little bit. I just want to get a wrap or two down right here so that I'm going to be able to twist this squirrel around my bead, and I'm going to make kind of a little collar. Again, I could cut this off and make a little dubbing loop, but that's going to take a long time. I wanted just something quick and easy. You can make a fly as complicated as you want, or you can make it super simple. And so I'm trying to just make this as simple as I can. So what I'm going to do is I'll just kind of pull that back a little. I'm going to get my squirrel ready, and I'm just going to come right here, and I'm just going to spin this around maybe once or twice, and I'm going to end right, make sure that's tight, and I'll come right here, I'll get my thread back, and you don't really have to worry. This stuff is really fluffy, and it really behaves well when you wrap over it. So I really just want to get right behind my bead. Got hands everywhere. I'm going to do a couple tight wraps right down here, and it looks super puffy now, but when you get this bait wet, it's really gonna thin out really quick. Just gonna come right there and just trim off that little bit of last, just had a little straggler left, and I can get all of this folded back, and I kind of want to find where my hide is, where I cut, and I just want to make sure that that's going to get tied down and not slip on me. So just get that matted down, and now you can see how small that collar is going to be. You almost don't have one. Whereas if you didn't do those couple wraps, or if you didn't take the time to do a dubbing loop or something, you're going to just have a big kind of gap between this bead and where that rabbit starts. And this also allows it to be, the hairs around the entire shank by the bead. And I'll just do a couple more tight wraps, and I'll just get this whip finished off, and then I can get that combed out. Just 3 turns. You can put some head cement down here. So I've got a little bit of a Velcro strip here, and I'm just gonna kind of get in that dubbing, and you can almost just kind of touch it, and it's gonna stick right into that Velcro. And I'm going to just kind of flare that out a little bit and then pull it back, because there will be some fibers that come out on you. And now you can see that some of this red is going to go all the way down. So when this gets wet, it's going to stick right to that squirrel. And there's just going to be a little hint of red in this bait. Not too much. So I'll just kind of just do this live. And I'll just get this dipped in the water, let it drip off a little bit, and I want the bead side of this bait to be thicker than the other side. Not that they are like super uneven on either side of their head. I don't even know their head. Well, I don't even know how to describe a leech's body. It's like a worm. So Just a super simple, you can just see some of that red. When this dries again, I might end up grabbing a little bit more out of there with my Velcro. But this, I mean, 2.5 inches or so, letting this sit right on the bottom, or just jigging it in suspended in the water column. This is going to be perfect for walleyes, even big perch, crappies and stuff like that. They'll target something like this. It's super thin. It's a really, really thin bait. You could bulk this up. You could add, I mean, if you had a longer shank hook, you could make this a really big bait. Some of the balanced leeches and stuff out there they're pretty thick, but if you look at a leech in the water, it is paper thin. Junior's Fishing Company. Like and subscribe. Drop some comments below. We'll see you on the next one.